The text message arrived at 2:47 p.m. on a Thursday, while I was sitting in a hospital bed with an 4 in my left arm and a heart monitor beeping steadily beside me. Brian, Dad, we need to talk about the house. The buyer's attorney needs your signature by Monday. I'm coming by tomorrow to explain everything. I read it 3 times. The buyer's attorney. Not a buyer's attorney. The buyer's attorney. Which meant there was already a buyer. Which meant the house was already sold. Which meant my 2 children had listed, negotiated, and accepted an offer on the house I'd lived in for 37 years while I was in a hospital bed recovering from a heart attack I'd had 6 days earlier. I set the phone face down on the bedside tray next to the cup of water I wasn't allowed to drink from because I was scheduled for another test in the morning. I looked out the window at the parking lot 4 floors below. The afternoon sun made the asphalt shimmer. Then I picked the phone back up and typed a response. Me, okay. See you tomorrow. 2 words. That's all I gave them. Because I had learned something in 68 years of life that my children clearly hadn't. The person who speaks first shows their hand. The person who stays quiet controls the conversation. I wasn't ready to speak yet, but I was already planning what I'd say when I did. Welcome to Family Reckoning. I'm glad you're here for this one. Let me know you're with me. Drop your state or country in the comments so I can see where this story is reaching. And a quick note before we begin. This story contains fictionalized elements for dramatic and educational purposes. Any resemblance to actual people or events is coincidental. But the lesson I'm about to share, that's as real as it gets. The house at 4712 Maple Drive wasn't much to look at from the outside. Single-story ranch. Built in 1967. Beige siding that I'd repainted twice. Once in 1994, once in 2008. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, a backyard with an oak tree that was older than the house and had a tire swing I'd hung in 1988, when my daughter Vanessa was 4 and my son Brian was 6. I bought it in 1987 for $43,000 with money I'd saved working as a machinist at the textile equipment plant on Industrial Boulevard. My wife Karen and I had been married for 3 years. Brian was 1. Vanessa was on the way. We needed more space than the apartment we'd been renting, and the house on Maple Drive was what we could afford. It wasn't our dream house. It was just our house. The place where we lived. Where the kids grew up. Where Karen planted roses along the front walk every spring until the year she got too sick to plant them anymore. Karen died in 2016. Ovarian cancer. 59 years old. We'd been married 32 years. After she died, the kids asked if I wanted to sell the house and move into something smaller. Less to maintain, Dad, Vanessa had said. Less to worry about. I'd said no. The house didn't feel like a burden. It felt like the last place Karen and I had been together. Her coffee mug was still in the cabinet. Her reading glasses were still on the nightstand. The roses she'd planted in 2015, the last ones before she got too sick, were still blooming every spring. I wasn't ready to leave that. I didn't know if I'd ever be ready. The kids had nodded and said they understood. And I'd believed them. That was 8 years ago. Before I learned that I understand and I agree are 2 very different things. The heart attack happened on a Tuesday morning in September. I was in the garage, organizing tools. Something I'd been meaning to do for 3 months and had finally started because the weather was nice and I had nothing else planned. I felt the pressure first. Not pain exactly. Pressure. Like someone had put their hand flat against my chest and was pushing steadily. Not hard enough to knock me over, but hard enough that I couldn't ignore it. Then the pain came. Sharp. Radiating down my left arm. I knew what it was immediately. You don't spend 68 years alive without learning what a heart attack feels like, even if you've never had one. I called 911. They arrived in 7 minutes. I was conscious the whole time. That's what I remember most clearly. Being completely aware of what was happening. Aware that this might be the last time I saw my garage, my tools, the house Karen and I had built a life in. They stabilized me in the ambulance. At the hospital, they did an angioplasty. Put in a stent. The cardiologist, a woman in her 40s named Dr. Patel, told me I was lucky. The blockage was significant, but we'd caught it early. With medication, lifestyle changes, and rest, I'd likely make a full recovery. You'll need to take it easy for a while, she said. No heavy lifting, no strenuous activity, and you'll need someone to help you at home for at least the first few weeks. I nodded. Brian and Vanessa would help. That's what family did. I called them from the hospital on Tuesday evening, told them what happened. Both of them said they'd come see me as soon as they could. Brian arrived Wednesday afternoon. He's 40, works in sales for a medical supply company, married to a woman named Stephanie who I've met maybe 6 times in the 8 years they've been together. They live in Charlotte, about 2 hours away. He stood at the foot of my hospital bed with his hands in his pockets, looking uncomfortable. Brian had never been comfortable in hospitals. Even as a kid, he'd hated visiting relatives who were sick. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Tired," I said. "But they say I'll be okay." "That's good. That's really good, Dad." He shifted his weight. "Listen, Stephanie and I have been talking. You're going to need help when you get out of here. And the house. It's a lot for one person to manage even when you're healthy." "I manage fine," I said. "I know you do, but this is a wake-up call, right? Maybe it's time to think about downsizing. Moving into something easier. Condo, maybe. Or assisted living." I looked at him. "I'm 68, not 98. "I know. I'm just saying this might be an opportunity. To simplify. To reduce stress." I didn't argue. I was too tired to argue. And I'd learned that with Brian, arguing just made him dig in harder. "Let me think about it," I said. "Sure. Of course. We'll talk more when you're feeling better." He left 20 minutes later. Said he had to get back to Charlotte for a meeting in the morning. Vanessa came Thursday. She's 36, works as a dental hygienist, divorced with 2 kids. My grandchildren, ages 9 and 7, who I saw maybe 4 times a year if I was lucky. She lives in Greensboro, about 45 minutes away. She brought flowers, set them on the windowsill and sat in the chair beside my bed. "You scared us," she said. "Scared myself," I admitted. "Brian told me what he said. About downsizing." She paused. "He's not wrong, Dad. The house is a lot. And if something like this happens again and you're alone." "I'm fine," I said. "You're fine now. What about next time?" She leaned forward. "We just want you to be safe. We want to know you're taken care of." The way she said it, "we want to know you're taken care of," made it sound like the concern was for me. But there was something underneath it. Something I couldn't name yet but could feel. "I appreciate the concern," I said. "But I'm not making any decisions while I'm lying in a hospital bed." Vanessa nodded. "Of course not. We'll talk when you're home." She stayed for an hour. We talked about her kids, about her job, about nothing that mattered. Then she left, and I was alone again with the heart monitor beeping and the 4 drip and the feeling that something was happening that I wasn't being told about. 2 days later, Brian sent the text message about the buyer's attorney. "Comment still here if you're locked in. This goes exactly where you think it does," and then further. Brian arrived at the hospital at 11 a.m. on Friday carrying a leather folder and wearing what I'd come to recognize as his business meeting expression. Polite, professional, slightly detached. Vanessa arrived 10 minutes later. She sat in the chair. Brian stood at the foot of the bed. Neither of them asked how I was feeling. "Dad," Brian started, "we need to talk about a decision we've made. For your own good. For your own good." For words that have preceded almost every bad decision made on someone else's behalf since the beginning of time. "We've sold the house," Vanessa said. No preamble. Just the fact, delivered like a news anchor reading a traffic report. I didn't react. I'd had 18 hours to prepare for this conversation, to decide how to play it. "Sold it to who?" I asked. "A family," Brian said. "Young couple. 2 kids. They offered asking price. It's a good sale, Dad. Clean. Fast." "What was asking price?" $240,000. Brian opened the folder. "The market's strong right now. We priced it fairly. You'll walk away with a good amount after closing costs." I looked at both of them. My children. Two people I'd raised. Federal put through college by working double shifts and living on pasta and canned soup for 3 years so they wouldn't have to take out loans. When did you list it? I asked. They glanced at each other. Vanessa answered. Wednesday. The day after my heart attack. While I was unconscious in the ICU, they'd listed the house. We didn't want to bother you with it while you were recovering, Brian said quickly. We handled everything. We got a realtor. We staged it. We managed the showings. All you have to do is sign the paperwork. He pulled documents from the folder. Set them on the bedside tray. There's a facility in Greensboro, Vanessa said. Nice place. Independent living. You'd have your own apartment. Meals provided. Activities. Medical staff on site. We've already put down a deposit. You put down a deposit, I repeated. Refundable, she added quickly. If you don't like it, we'll find somewhere else. But Dad, you can't go back to that house alone. Not after this. I looked at the documents. Purchase agreement. Power of attorney forms. Papers that would transfer ownership of my home to strangers while I sat in a hospital bed. How did you list it? I asked. It's my house. My name on the deed. Brian shifted. We used the POA you signed 2 years ago. Remember? When you had that scare with your blood pressure and wanted to make sure we could handle things if something happened. I remembered. I'd signed a limited power of attorney giving them authority to manage my affairs if I became incapacitated. It was supposed to be for emergencies. For situations where I couldn't make decisions myself. I was sitting up in bed, fully conscious, fully capable. I'm not incapacitated, I said. The document doesn't specify the definition of incapacitated, Brian said, and his voice had shifted into the tone he used when he was closing a sale. It gives us authority to act in your best interest when we determine it's necessary. And Dad, it's necessary. You had a heart attack. You can't live alone anymore. I looked at Vanessa. She wouldn't meet my eyes. So you've decided, I said. We've decided what's best, Vanessa said. And we need you to trust that we're doing this because we love you. Because we love you. The second most dangerous phrase in the English language. Right after for your own good. I picked up the pen Brian had set on the tray. I looked at the documents. Then I set the pen down. I need to think about this, I said. Dad, the buyer needs an answer by Monday, Brian said. If we don't close, we lose the sale. Then you lose the sale. Vanessa stood up. Dad, please, don't make this harder than it has to be. I'm not making anything hard, I said quietly. I'm asking for time to think. That's reasonable. Brian's jaw tightened. He picked up the documents. We'll come back tomorrow. Hopefully you'll see reason by then. They left. I sat in the hospital bed with the 4 in my arm and the heart monitor beeping and a clarity I hadn't felt in 6 days. My children had sold my house without asking me. They'd used a legal loophole to override my autonomy. They'd decided my future and presented it to me as a done deal. And they expected me to sign the papers and thank them for it. I wasn't going to do that. But I also wasn't going to fight them. Not directly. Not yet. I was going to let them think they'd won. And while they were celebrating their victory, I was going to make sure it cost them everything they thought they'd gained. The idea came to me that night while I was lying awake at 2 a.m., listening to someone's heart monitor alarm going off 3 rooms down. Brian and Vanessa had used a power of attorney to sell the house. That POA gave them authority to manage my affairs if they determined I was incapacitated or if it was in my best interest. But the thing about a POA is that it's a legal document, which means it can be revoked at any time, for any reason, as long as the person who granted it is mentally competent. I was mentally competent. Dr. Patel had confirmed it when she cleared me for discharge planning yesterday. Mentally sharp as ever, Mr. Holloway, she'd said. If I revoked the POA, Brian and Vanessa would lose their legal authority to sell the house. The sale would collapse. The buyer would walk away. But if I revoked it now, they'd know. They'd fight me. They'd argue that I was making an emotional decision, that I wasn't thinking clearly, that I was being stubborn. so I wouldn't revoke it now. I'd let them think they'd won. I'd sign the papers. I'd let the sale proceed all the way to closing. And then, one day before closing, I'd revoke the POA and contact the buyer's attorney directly. The sale would fall apart. Brian and Vanessa would lose the commission, the deposit, and their credibility with the realtor. And I'd keep the house. It was risky. It was borderline cruel. It was also perfectly legal. And after what they'd done, I had no problem with any of it. Drop 100 points if you're still with me. The plan gets better. On Saturday morning, Brian and Vanessa returned with the documents. I was sitting up in bed, dressed in the street clothes they'd brought me, looking like a man who'd spent the night reconsidering his stubbornness and had come to accept reality. "I've been thinking," I said before they could start their pitch. "You're right. The house is too much. And I don't want to be a burden." Vanessa's expression softened immediately. "Dad, you're not a burden. I know you mean well," I said. "Both of you. I'm sorry I was difficult yesterday. This is just... it's hard." "We know," Brian said. "That's why we're here. To help." I picked up the pen. "Show me where to sign." They did. I signed everything. Purchase agreement. Closing documents. Every piece of paper that transferred 4712 Maple Drive from my name to strangers. When I finished, Brian put his hand on my shoulder. "You made the right choice, Dad. You'll see. This is going to be better for everyone." "I'm sure it will be," I said. They left 20 minutes later. I watched them walk to the parking lot from my window. I saw Brian say something to Vanessa. I saw them both smile. Then I called the hospital's patient services line and asked them to send up a notary. The notary was a woman in her 50s, named Mrs. Perkins, who worked in the hospital's legal affairs office. She arrived with the forms I'd requested from the hospital's patient advocacy department. Revocation of power of attorney. I filled it out carefully, stating that I, Thomas Joseph Holloway, being of sound mind and body, hereby revoked the power of attorney granted to Brian Holloway and Vanessa Kessler on March 14, 2022. Effective immediately. Mrs. Perkins notarized it. I asked her to make 3 copies. 1 for me, 1 for Brian's attorney, 1 for the buyer's attorney. "When should I send these?" she asked. "Not yet," I said. "I'll let you know." She nodded. She'd been doing this work long enough to know that family legal matters were complicated and that timing mattered. I was discharged on Sunday. Brian and Vanessa both offered to take me to the independent living facility they'd chosen. I thanked them but said I'd arranged for a friend to pick me up. The friend was actually a taxi. I went home, to 4712 Maple Drive, to the house they'd sold. The for sale sign was still in the yard, under contract. I walked through the front door with my discharge papers in one hand and the revocation documents in the other. The house smelled like the lemon cleaner the realtor's staging team had used. The furniture had been rearranged. My personal photos had been removed and replaced with generic art. They turned my home into a showroom. I walked to the bedroom. Karen's reading glasses were gone from the nightstand. Packed up, probably. Put in storage so buyers wouldn't see evidence that a real person had lived here. I sat on the bed. The same bed Karen and I had slept in for 29 years. And I made a decision. I wasn't just going to revoke the POA and cancel the sale. I was going to make sure Brian and Vanessa understood exactly what they tried to take from me. The closing was scheduled for October 15th, 3 weeks from the day I signed the papers. I didn't tell Brian or Vanessa I was living in the house. When they called to check on me, I told them I was staying with a friend while I figured things out. They seemed satisfied with that. I watched the calendar. I marked off each day. On October 14th, 1 day before closing, I sent the revocation documents. 1 copy to Brian via certified mail. 1 copy to Vanessa via certified mail. 1 copy to the buyer's attorney via email and certified mail. The email to the buyer's attorney was simple. Dear Sir or Madam, please be advised that the power of attorney used to execute the sale of the property at 4712 Maple Drive has been revoked, effective immediately. As the sole owner of said property, I did not personally authorize this sale, and do not consent to the transfer of the property. The sale cannot proceed. Sincerely, Thomas J. Holloway. I sent it at 8 a.m. By 10 a.m., my phone was ringing. Brian first. I didn't answer. Vanessa second. I didn't answer. The buyer's attorney third. That one I answered. Mr. Holloway, I've received your email. I need to clarify. Are you stating that you did not authorize the sale of your property? That's correct, I said. But you signed the closing documents, under duress, while recovering from a heart attack, using a power of attorney that I have now revoked. There was a long pause. Mr. Holloway, this puts us in a very difficult position. The buyers have already secured financing. They've given notice on their rental. They have moving trucks scheduled for tomorrow. I'm very sorry for their inconvenience, I said. But the house is not for sale. It never was. Not by my choice. I'll need to consult with my clients and with the selling agent. We may need to pursue legal action. You're welcome to try, I said. But you'll find that a person has the legal right to revoke a POA at any time. And without that POA, my children had no authority to sell my property. The sale is void. I hung up. 30 seconds later, Brian called again. This time I answered. What the hell did you do? He shouted. I revoked the power of attorney, I said calmly. I'm not selling the house. You already sold it. You signed the papers. Under a POA that I've now revoked. The sale can't proceed. Dad, the buyers are going to sue. The realtor is going to sue. Do you understand what you've done? I understand perfectly. I've protected my property from being sold without my genuine consent. What I don't understand is what you thought gave you the right to sell my house while I was in a hospital bed. Vanessa was yelling in the background. I could hear her through Brian's phone. We were trying to help you, Brian said. No, I said quietly. You were trying to help yourselves. And I'm not going to let you. I hung up. They called 17 more times that day. I didn't answer. Comment still listening. If this is hitting you. We're almost to the resolution. The legal fallout took 6 weeks to settle. The buyers threatened to sue but ultimately walked away when their attorney explained that the sale had been executed under a POA that was no longer valid. They were angry. I didn't blame them. The realtor demanded her commission. I pointed out that she'd listed a property without the owner's direct consent. She backed down. Brian and Vanessa hired a lawyer. The lawyer sent a letter demanding I reimburse them for the deposit they'd put down on the independent living facility and threatening to sue for elder abuse, claiming I was mentally unfit to make my own decisions. I responded with a letter from Dr. Patel confirming I was mentally competent, along with a detailed timeline of their actions. Listing the house the day after my heart attack, using a POA intended for emergencies, pressuring me to sign documents while I was hospitalized. Their lawyer stopped returning their calls. Brian and Vanessa stopped calling me entirely. That was 8 months ago. I still live at 4712 Maple Drive. The for sale sign is long gone. I replanted Karen's roses this spring, the same variety she always chose. They're blooming now, pink and full and beautiful. My health is good. I take my medications. I walk every morning. I see Dr. Patel every 3 months. My heart is strong. Last week, Vanessa called. First time in 8 months. Dad, she said, and her voice was different, smaller. Can we talk? We can, I said. I'm sorry for what we did, for not asking you, for making decisions that weren't ours to make. I sat down in the chair by the window, the same chair Karen used to sit in to watch the birds. Why did you do it? I asked. She was quiet for a long time. Then, I was scared. When you had the heart attack, I thought we were going to lose you, and the house felt like this huge responsibility that would fall on us if something happened. Brian and I talked about it, and we convinced ourselves we were doing the right thing, making it easier. For you. For us. It wasn't easier, I said. It was a betrayal. I know. Her voice cracked. I know, Dad, and I don't expect you to forgive me. But I needed you to know I'm sorry. I looked out the window at the roses. at the tire swing that my grandchildren had never played on because they were never brought over. Come visit, I said. Bring the kids. Let them see their grandfather's house. Let them play in the yard. Vanessa was crying now. Really? Really? But Vanessa, if you ever try to make a decision about my life without asking me first, we're done. Permanently. Do you understand? I understand. Then come Sunday. I'll make lunch. She came. She brought the kids. We had lunch in the kitchen. The kids played on the tire swing. Vanessa and I talked. Really talked. About Mom. About fear. About control and trust and the difference between helping someone and taking over their life. Brian hasn't called. I don't know if he will. That's his choice. I'm 69 now. I don't know how many more years I have in this house. Maybe 5. Maybe 20. But however many I have, they'll be mine. Lived on my terms. In the place I chose. Because here's what I learned. The people who love you don't make decisions for you. They make decisions with you. And if they can't tell the difference, they don't love you the way you deserve to be loved. If this story reached you, I need to hear from you. Leave a comment. Tell me about a time someone made a decision for your own good that was really for theirs. Tell me how you took your power back. Here's what I learned at 69. 1. Never sign away your power while you're vulnerable. Wait, think, get a second opinion. 2. For your own good usually means for my convenience. Listen to the motive under the words. 3. You're not a burden for wanting to live your life on your terms. You're a person with agency. Don't let anyone take that from you. 4. Legal documents are tools. Power of attorney, living wills, trusts, they're meant to protect you, not control you. Understand them before you sign them. 5. It's never too late to take back what's yours. I was 68, recovering from a heart attack, and I still fought. So can you. These stories aren't easy to tell. But I tell them because somewhere out there is someone whose children are making decisions without asking. Someone being told they're too old, too sick, too confused to know what's best for themselves. You're not too anything. You're you. And your life belongs to you until the moment you explicitly, voluntarily, without coercion hand it to someone else. Don't hand it to people who haven't earned it. If this reached you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to Family Reckoning so you never miss a story like this. Comment below. Tell me what you're protecting. Tell me what you're fighting for. Thank you for staying to the end. It means everything. One final note. Some elements of this story are fictionalized for narrative and educational purposes. If that's not your style, I understand. But the core truth that you have the right to control your own life, even when people who claim to love you disagree, that's real. That's always real.